Okay, thanks, Heather, and hi to everyone. It's late here in the evening in London, but you guys on the West Coast are, which is why it's a bit dark in here. I mean, sort of, it feels a bit weird, but anyway, we'll get going. So, what we're talking about here is a new integrated dashboard and BI app solution for business objects. So, it's a few things to say about that. One is new integrated dashboards. Well, with the demise of Xcelsius and SAP Dashboards, that's obviously being phased out because of the Flash issue. It leaves a bit of a hole in the business objects world. And Squirrel365, the product we're going to see today, we think really fills that hole, not only sort of as a replacement for Xcelsius, but as much more besides. So that's the first thing to take from this intro screen. The second thing, and actually in my view, the more important, the more strategic thing, is I'm talking here about dashboards and BI apps. And watch out through the presentation when I talk about these BI apps and what they are, because I really think that they are of fundamental importance. I've heard all sorts of stuff talked about dashboards in the last sort of few weeks and months. I know the CEO of ThoughtSpot, I think it was, wrote an article sort of saying, "Oh, dashboards are dead. It's all going to be natural language query." I think he's right in a sense that sort of static dashboards that you hang on the wall, and when things go red, you call somebody up. Yeah, they're a thing of the past. They can only really teach you about the past. But as we'll see, I think, and those people that have been using Xcelsius and SAP Dashboards before and Squirrel now have started to blaze a trail into a world where dashboards, things that still look like dashboards, become much more sophisticated and much more valuable to the organization and help us to get out to more people with more information. And as we all know, getting information into the hands of end users is the lifeblood of an organization. The more you do this, it's almost impossible to get the right information in the hands of the right users and things to go badly. You've got, provided they can use it as they get it. So this is a way of doing that. So the premise for today's presentation is this is a way to deliver your SAP business objects and other data. We'll see various other data sources, but the main build demo we'll do at the end will be on SAP business objects. Get it out to more people more easily, faster, and at lower cost, and get greater end user adoption and take the first step from dashboard to apps. And as I say, I think that last one, the mindset of changing from what's a dashboard to what's an app is important. I suspect many of you will look at these and say, hey, we're doing things like that. And I would encourage you to think about those and how you push them on so that you get more out of this sort of technology. As I say, we're long gone are the days where it's enough just to put a sort of a bar on a chart and a few other boxes on a screen and be able to sort of filter them. You've got to do a lot more if you want to take real advantage of what's going on. And so the Squirrel Value is that you can create these stunning web-based apps and dashboards, and we'll see a variety of these as we go through the presentation, from your existing SAP business objects and other data, and we'll look at those data sources as we go on. But the important thing for here in the SAP business objects user group community is you can take your existing data, your existing reports, and turn them in the same way that you could access those and your universe data through Xcelsius and SAP dashboards. You can do the same thing with Squirrel. And this is quick, in days or weeks, not months. It's not these big projects. You can turn these around quickly, work in an agile way. And the heart of all of this is with spreadsheet knowledge. So you don't have to learn a new tool. There's not a new way of doing things. I'm pretty sure that pretty much everybody here on the presentation today has the spreadsheet knowledge you need to do this. So you don't need to learn anything else. You already have those skills. It's spreadsheet knowledge plus clicks with no code, nothing else other than the knowledge you already have about Excel at amazingly low total cost of ownership. And the interesting thing about the total cost of ownership is I had a conversation with a director of BI at a large US corporate a while ago. And he was talking about having sort of a fairly straightforward BI requirement to deliver existing data. He had the data already. We always know the biggest thing of a BI project is getting the data. They had the data in the warehouse. They wanted to get it to a large group of users. And that's key. The large group of users is key because when we're talking about getting interactive data that people can get into and get value from, you have to have this application style interface that allows them to pick it up sort of no training required, no documentation required. But that's what he was trying to do. He said it's easy. It's not that complicated. I just need to build something like this. But then and he talked about his BI tool, and I won't reference it here because it's of protect the innocent, as it were. But he said as soon as I talk about this, because it's a large group of users, the server, the software for the server capable of managing this is over $100,000 to start with. And he said, I can't. That's really a deal breaker for me. And the great thing about the way that Squirrel is licensed is you're not going to get that starting cost of this huge. It's a fairly straightforward install. You can take it out to users, and it will not be that. It's not. You can get started quickly and easily, both from a technical and delivery point of view, but also from a cost perspective, so that you can do this thing quickly and get it out and add value, and then grow from there. And as you grow, we grow as well. So it's a real win-win. It's not like these sort of super sort of, and one of the reasons for that is these big BI platforms, as Gartner called them, they do so many things. They come with a large cost. We're very focused. It's adding this app capability on top of existing data, so people can get what they need. And a great example of that is, I don't know if David Baer from USPI or any of his team are on the call today, but I sort of hope they are, because it's just a fantastic use of our product. They used Squirrel with InfoBurst from InfoSol, and it was a year ago, and it was the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, and they run a series of facilities. Medical facilities, and they had the PPE problem. Well, actually, they had a PPE problem and a drugs problem, and that was how to manage the supply of everything they needed around in this sort of emergency situation. And remarkably, they went from zero to data collection into the warehouse through their business operating system and through a Squirrel365 front end in 3 weeks, start to finish. And if that isn't remarkable enough, they also got it out to hundreds of end users. And the reason that's remarkable is usually in a BI project, you say, oh, well, we've got to stop for end user training. They didn't do any end user training. The reason for that, or if they did, it was minimal end user training. And that's because these things, the way they did it, it looks like a dashboard, but in my view, it's really an app. So have a quick look at it. These are taken from, this is David up in the corner here. I did a webinar with him, and this is taken from that webinar interview, just some screenshots. This is the dashboard. Looks gorgeous, engages people, brings them in so they want to use it, but at a glance they can see what they need. It's well laid out. It doesn't, I mean, you don't have to, if you are in this business or in this organization, you know what all of these things mean. And obviously you can start to do things, lots of ordinary dashboard things like filtering. So you can filter across a particular person or a particular facility or things like that. But then comes sort of the more app sort of thing. So drill through, and this isn't your normal drill through. What you can do here is you can click on a number. So he's going to click on this 72. And rather than seeing sort of the table, normally drill down is I click on a row and it spills out. Here we've got a big number, a single number. But now we've clicked and we get the context of that number to see where they're available. And so people can click on it and understand where the stocks are. So if they need stocks of something, in this case, a surgical gown, they can see who's got it, so they can quickly sort of talk about how they would get those from between facilities. So it's not your standard drill, and it's more, it pops up in a new window, which can then be dismissed. It's just natural. It feels like the way that you would use any other sort of web-based application. So, and that's the reason you create these interfaces, so that people don't need to have any training. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is the ability to change views. So up here, you can just click a single button and get a completely different view for people who need to view hospital-specific metrics. There's a different way of looking at the data. Again, it's got a label and it's got a box by it. You don't need to, if you need hospital-specific metrics, you'll see that, you'll click on it and get it. And so it's a fantastic application which allows them to take all this information and deliver it to technical in a different way. Doctors, nurses, care staff, they're technical in their own world, but they're not technical from a dashboard world. This was rolled out, they could just use it. And that's the beauty of apps. If you want to get to a large set of users, you don't want them thinking about queries, and so you just want them clicking in a natural way on a natural interface. So that's a sort of recorded example. What I want to show you now are 4 sort of live examples, all created with Squirrel, some on top of InfoBurst, some not, that are just different ways of doing this, each with a little bit of, as I say, application style capability. So if I come in here, the first thing is going to start is a fairly standard dashboard. But there are some features in here which are quite nice. I mean, obviously, you can change the numbers by clicking on a drop down, as in the USPI dashboard, fairly standard. Fairly standard business intelligence sort of dashboarding stuff. But here, the ability to be able to click between monthly and quarterly. Now you can do that. That's not baked into the product. You don't have it. That's not a chart. You can just switch. It's like you put these controls on. So if you want a radio button or you want a menu like this, you can do different things. You can do what's appropriate for your end user. You do it really quickly, but you build an interface which speaks the user's language. You don't have to bring the users to the front end. The front end comes to the users. And then, because, as I said at the beginning, all of Squirrel capability is based on a spreadsheet, you can have that little bit of financial modeling in the heart of your dashboard. So here we're doing sort of like, if we increase predicted sales, what happens to these numbers? And actually, that's not only is that valuable for people to get a feel for the way that maybe these numbers affect each other, but it's a great engagement feature. We all know getting users to use things is tricky, and so these sort of features, although it may seem a little gimmicky, actually draw people in. But one of the things on here, or the thing on here, which goes above and beyond a normal sort of dashboard, is this ability to store comments. And not so much because it's a commentary, but because we've built this in Squirrel to write back comments to a database. So I add a new comment. I can add it in there. That's then written back. That has now been written back to an underlying database where I can see them all and will be available for other people who come into the dashboard. And it's interesting, David Baer, the chap from USPI who oversaw that dashboard you just saw, actually his definition of an app, he said it's a dashboard until it can write back and take action, then it becomes an app. So in some, even in, I would argue that David's is an app really because of the way that the UI is portrayed. But even in his definition, we're heading there towards sort of starting to be what he calls an app, because we're writing something back to the database. The second one here, apologies, a little small on the screen, is again more traditional BI dashboard. This is actually based on a Snowflake instance. It's their city bikes data. There are about 62 million rows in here, and I can do the sort of things that you would expect to be able to do in a dashboard, which is being able to I'm drilling across for the different years, drill down into different types of users as you navigate there. These are all doing queries in real time to the underlying Snowflake system, and I'm impressed with Snowflake as I was building this. Impressed with them as a system. But interesting things happen down here. So I can select one of these, maybe that one there, and then drill into it. So I've clicked to drill down. So that's going and doing a query to get into the underlying the underlying detail. And again, I can click down here and notice that when I click that bike icon changed. And that's because something different is going to happen if we select this. It actually switches to the trips that were taken by those, the top 30 by duration of those things. And it's those little cues inside the interface that help people use them. Those things can allow people to use this data, use these dashboards, because it's, as I say, it's an app-like capability. Most dashboards wouldn't do that. You'd have to know how to drill down. This engages and draws people in, and it makes a huge difference when you can do that. As I say, when you can take the interface to the user rather than the user having to come to the interface. Another one, again, it looks like a standard dashboard. I can drill across to various suppliers here, but what happens is, and again, so if I can click on one of these and I see the invoices and it pops up in another window. I don't need that all the time. This is another window I can see to actually do something. I say, oh, that Hot Wheels data, I need to update it. It should be 66 and not 6. So I update that, and hey presto, all the data up here changes. I've obviously got a lot more Hot Wheels because I've changed that order. So again, and that's being written back to an underlying database, and it may be it isn't suitable to write back into invoices, but you can see how this starts to give you this actionable capability from a little from an interface, but it's easy to use, and sort of it's a little piece of function. And apps are all about that, little pieces of functionality for a specific purpose that are easy to use and get things done. You all have hundreds of them probably on your phones and tablets, and this is just taking that same sort of paradigm to the business world, and it's a real merge of business intelligence capability, because all of these will need some level of business intelligence. Every app requires some level of reporting of numbers, of number crunching, but also there's actionable capability as well. And one of my favorites, because it's so far at the far end of the spectrum that it really gets the point across. Here's a squirrel which, yeah, you call it a dashboard, call it a project, call it what you will. That's actually a fairly fully fledged CRM system. I can switch between my leads, my opportunities, and see who's churned. If I come in here, I can search to see sort of like who's got searching for a particular customer. Every time I change this, all of these change so that I can see different details, all coming out of my CRM database. Interestingly, let's take this off and get all of them here. If I take Lioness Point, I can say I want to progress them from a lead to opportunity. So I click on that, they've gone. Lioness, I think it'll be in here. Yeah, Lioness Point is in here, so it's moved from a lead to opportunity. That will be reflected in the underlying database. If I say, actually, let's look at them again. I say, actually, I didn't mean to do. I meant to mark them as churned because we've lost them. So click on there, they disappear from there, and now Lioness has appeared over in here. And so I can move them around. So taking actions in a really nice, neat interface. I can update the details. Notice I can't submit this because I haven't changed anything. If I change the details, then I could submit that and update that, and you can give different people the permissions. I can even here create a new lead, add it into the database, and sort of all managed through this one screen. So actually, in many, very little business intelligence there, but it shows you. I really, as I say, the message here is this sort of capability is important for people who are delivering business intelligence systems. I think will become more important, and so it's something to bear in mind. And if all you take from this is possible, and you can build this sort of stuff into your business intelligence output, then so much the better. So that's for example, with the video of David, that's 5 examples of BI dashboards becoming applications using Squirrel365, some with InfoBurst in them. For example, this Snowflake demo had InfoBurst managing the queries between Squirrel and the backend Snowflake database. But the question then is sort of, how do you do this? What does the product look like that builds these things? So what we're going to do is to bring up, this is Squirrel365, and let me just get a new one here, and I'm going to open my starting point. And the only thing I've done in here is I've actually put in some credentials, and the reason I've done it is because the credentials are actually hidden by making them the same color as the background in here, and then referenced by a formula in here, so I don't give away my password to the system. Other than that, this is completely blank. And what we're going to do is we're going to wire this up, because we're talking here about business objects. So you can do what we've seen on many different data sources, but obviously business objects is a key one for this audience here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do it based on this Webby report in the mainstream. And well, I've got this is in the Webby Rich client, because I think in 4.2 and 4.3, the only place you can do this is in the Rich. They have to be in the Rich client. It isn't in the web. And you can take one of these and then sort of publish as a web service. Now, there's much confusion here. My understanding, and the guys from SAP can verify this, is query as a web service can no longer be created in 4.3, but I believe that BI web services still can. In fact, I looking at the documentation earlier today, and it was all listed there as a capability in the 4.3 portal. So hopefully that is still there. And the way that I do this, I take this WSDL, I copy it to the clipboard, and then I come back to my Squirrel system, and I add BI web services connector. So I paste in that WSDL, and that goes away. That's talking to the business object system, and it's now saying, well, which method of that do you want? And I want to get the block sales. Now I need to add my username and password in here, and then I'm going to get those from the sheet that I was telling you about earlier. So I just say username and password, so that will log me on. And now I want to say, well, the outputs. The output of this, I'm going to write not to the login sheet, but to this sheet here, maybe in this cell there. So I've made that connection from Squirrel through to the underlying database. So I can now run this, and there we go. And now I've got that data. That data has just come out of that report into the cells in the spreadsheet. And I could start reporting on that, but a little more I want to do here. This is for a number of vendors. Now I want to be able to filter by my vendors, and I want to filter that by pushing that filter back to the server. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the names. I have another web service here. I'll copy that detail to the clipboard. So I'm going to add a second web service connector in here. This one is only one method, which is get the vendor list. Again, I just need to quickly give it my credentials to log in. And those credentials can be, obviously can be obviously wouldn't normally be hard coded into the spreadsheet, but for convenience here, I'll do that. And then I come back to sheet 1, and I'm going to put them in here. So I will put this in here, and then maybe put that down like that. And so now I've got my vendor names coming in here. And so we've now got 2 queries coming from business objects into here. One is giving me my data in here for the revenues, and this is giving me my query about my vendors. So what I'm now going to do is start to show you how you build those sort of interfaces we were talking about before. So I can come in and I'm going to add a drop down, and it's all about binding to the spreadsheet and using spreadsheet formulas to drive things. So what I say is I want this to be these products. These vendors I want to appear in there. I'm going to say I want you to have one selected to start with, and I'm going to default to Digitron. Turns out it's my most important vendor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this this control, when the user clicks on it, is going to insert its label into this cell here, and I'll just color that as yellow so we know what's going on. But then we can take that input and put it back into the first connection we had. And so what I'm going to say is I'm going to have another selected input, and that's going to be the vendor name. And so the vendor name is going to be equal to this value in the spreadsheet. So I'm really using the spreadsheet to wire these 2 things together. And I'm going to say I also want this query to update whenever this cell changes. And so now what I have is, if I run this, then we see we've got the Digitron values. But if and I'm running, there are 2 modes I can run this in. I can run it in preview, which is as the end user sees, but I can also use it in debug, where I see the spreadsheet and what's going on. It's a fantastic way of understanding what's going on, making sure that everything's right. So now when I click on here and say I want the quantum supplier, you see it's filled the sheet with that. If I go back to Digitron, and that's executing different queries back against that business objects report. So I'm getting data live out of business objects. So that's all the data that I want to get in. That's all the details with the server. But then what I want to do now is, let me just hold on a second here. So the data that I've got in here, I'll just show you an example, is all the years for Digitrons. This is for a particular vendor. Now I want then to narrow that down by year. And now say I don't have a query that has years in it, like I had a vendor name query, and I don't have access to the system to create that. Well, with Squirrel, it's no problem. I can just add them in here and do the same thing again. So I'm going to come in here, put a drop down on, say I want a particular, actually I'm not going to do that. I'm completely wrong. I did completely not do that, because I do have the years. I have the years in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want the years to come from this list that have come dynamically from the report. So I can depend on what's going on there. And I want to say I want it to filter the rows. And so I can come in here and say, well, I've got this set of rows here, and I want to put it into, say, J to M there. And I'll just copy these headings across. So I've got that into there like that. So now what we can see is if I do this, then I can, there we go. And I can now select that, and it's populating these over here. So if I go maybe to Digitron in 2011, then I get that data there. And that's the data that I'm going to want to report on. So I come back here and put these in there. So that's the data I want to report. So I now start adding my components that I'm going to report on here. So I say I'm going to put that data in here, and I can start formatting it. So I say, well, actually, I'm going to take off the spreadsheet lines, maybe make this black on a background of white. Oh, sorry, what am I doing here? Let me put that, make that. Sorry, white on a background of black, wrong way around. And then if I update that formatting, I start to get there, make it a little bigger. So I can take my formatting for the spreadsheet quite happily like that, maybe make the columns a bit wider, and off we go there. And so update that format. So I've got, oh, actually what I want to do also is make these into currency and make them shorter and update that. So I've got a table there that I I've got my data in. I might want to add a chart as well, so I can all sorts of charts I can add. We're running a bit against time, and I know we started a bit late, so I won't do that. But then but the beauty of having the spreadsheet is, let's say I've got a ratio which is internals to network, and that's going to be I can just create it here. I can say that divided by that is my ratio. I might want to format that just as a number to get the ratio, and I can say. I can have a piece of text here, again, just as I said before, just using Excel capabilities or Excel knowledge. I want to put this, yeah, put that in there like that. Actually, no, I got to format it, and that's again just using like that. So ratio is 2.9. I can put a piece of text on here and just say I want that in my dashboard. Very quick, very easy to do, to be able to do that. And so now if I preview my dashboard, I've got all of the things here. I can change these between the different. I haven't got it updating properly. That's the one small thing. And why is my apology? I don't know. Oh yes, there's the ratio there. So if I change these to get, I don't know why that's oh, I know why that's disappearing. I've got this overwriting. Let me just quickly fix that, because I don't want you to see this. So sorry, drop down 2 is inserting. Binding too far. See, it's binding over that and overwriting it. So I only want it to go into there. Now we're going to do that. Sorry, my mistake. So I take that there. The ratio is changing for different years. So that ratio was constructed on top of data that I didn't have that ratio calculated in my underlying database. So that shows you how you can put these things together. You can do all the sort of things that I talked about in the 5 different dashboards that you saw. And we can take this, and then I can take it and I can publish it out. I can publish it out to the Squirrel Cloud or locally, so a set of web files that you can just deploy. And the important thing here is that you can deploy these back into the Launchpad. So a different venture of this. So I logged out here. So a different version of this, and so a polished, finished version of this report is here inside my my Business Objects portal. So here I've got a Squirrel report loading up. Oh, sorry, I've got the wrong one. I meant to. All running too fast. So critical vendor dashboard. Here we go. That's the Squirrel file loaded up into the Business Object system with all the capabilities, the sort of capabilities you saw before. Be able to do that, be able to buy that. This sum here is calculated on the fly using the Excel spreadsheet logic, and I've got a nice little dashboard that I can do back into my portal. So lots of, as you see, very easy to do, sitting dynamically on top of Business Objects data. You've got all those components, be able to not only build dashboards with charts and tables, but also you've got the checkboxes and the drop downs and the buttons and the menus and all that sort of stuff to be able to build these app like. You don't have to do a lot of app stuff. You just have to do a little, and so it starts to really to add that extra that gets dashboards more used, more valuable, more information to more people. Just a word about InfoBurst. What does it add to the Squirrel content? Well, as you saw with the Snowflake thing, it starts to allow us to talk to things like Snowflake and other ODBC-based and databases, as well as Oracle and SQL Server. And it gives us this write capability back to databases, which is critical for the application stuff. Also, it's got an amazing caching system that can take load off your business objects or database servers. And although it's not to do with Squirrel, you can burst content. You can burst your business objects content as well. So a lot of things you can do. So InfoBurst has a lot of value sitting in and around Squirrel. Although for the business object stuff that you saw there, InfoBurst is not required. You can go as I did directly into the business object system. So next steps, if you want to look at this, come to our website, squirrel365.io. You can get a trial for a 30-day trial. Contact us, or indeed, if you want any of the more details on any of this, particularly with InfoBurst, but anything about Squirrel, talk to Paul and the team at InfoSol, because they're great sort of partners of ours, and we work with them to deliver. And in fact, it was them who worked with David Baer to deliver that remarkable USPI PPE COVID dashboard. Apologies, we are running a little late, but I will stop there.